It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Welcome into Sports Talk. It's South Carolina Radio Network, and we are still here. We are in downtown Columbia, and we are still standing through hurricane number 2 of the season. Hello, Michael. Goodbye, Michael. Hope you had a nice trip through the state of South Carolina.
It's a quick one, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, it was pretty intense. It was windy. It was raining cats and dogs overnight and early this morning, but hopefully everybody is okay and life has returned to normal as best as possible. It's a beautiful yet humid and breezy afternoon in Columbia. But I tell you what, man, Florida Panhandle, hammered. Feel for those people down there because our people along our coast know exactly what they're going through. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic here on a Thursday night. We are loaded up with some great stuff. There's more news on Kelly Bryant that we'll get into, the coach and the quarterback, even though one of them is up a tree. Which one do you think is up a tree?
I can guarantee you one of them is probably Steve Tannehill, I would say.
Yes, he's out deer hunting once again, but he will join us tonight. And Coach Reedy's back from Turkey and Slovenia, wherever he goes.
Turks and Caicos.
Right. He's back from there. Mike Morgan will be with us. Clay Hendricks, Furman head football coach, live with us tonight on Sports Talk. They've got a big one against Wofford. Wofford's got a big one against Furman. It's a big game. It's a big in-state rivalry.
And just so we know, we're not showing any favoritism toward Furman necessarily because we're going to get to see the Wofford head coach next week for their pigskin preview stop in Spartanburg on Tuesday.
Absolutely. Jimbo Fisher, we'll hear from the coach of Texas A&M. He brings his team to Columbia on Saturday. And the money coach, Fran Halloran, will be here in our final segment. 800-956-7266. I know what I want to do real quick. Well, we've got about a half hour or so before we get into things. I want to open up the express lanes. And take as many calls as we can. And what happens, of course, when we're on the express lanes here on Sports Talk, no matter who we're talking to, we could have President Trump on the phone. He calls into shows from time to time. We could have President Trump. We could have Dabo Swinney celebrating his 10th anniversary. If you weren't aware of that,
yes,
10 years in for Dabo Swinney, he could call in. Whatever we're doing, we stop. We take your phone calls. We could be interviewing the Queen of England,
otherwise known as your self-imposed carte blanche to interrupt me whenever I'm talking.
Well, it's kind of neat when you're talking and a caller calls in and we have to stop you and go to the caller, especially when it's Glenn. I get a lot of pleasure out of saying up to the express lanes we go, and it's Glenn. That has a real nice feel to it. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. In the meantime, while we wait for the express lines to fill up, Kelly Bryant. Yes. Now, it was reported last night by Inside Carolina that he was going to visit North Carolina on Saturday. And then last night, we got a little information about what was going on with him behind the scenes, that at least 9 schools had reached out to him and contacted him, including schools like Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Georgia State. And then today, Woody Womack from Rivals reported that not only is he visiting North Carolina this weekend, and he got it right from Bryant because he talked to Bryant, he quoted Bryant, he's going to visit Arkansas officially next weekend, and he also plans to take official visits to Louisville and Missouri.
It's weird. The people in Missouri, when I was on with them last week, they were all asking me about, whether or not Kelly would be a fit. And I thought he would be a fit for them just because I don't think the next quarterback there is on their roster after Drew Lock graduates this year. I just don't know where the fit is. I've always thought that with Bryant, it's going to be a more regional fit because I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that he wants the people in his circle to be able to take part of his final year of college. That's why North Carolina, in my opinion, made more sense geographically, though I don't know how much football sense it makes because I don't see that team being any good next year or the rest of this year. And I also don't know if that head coach is going to be there when he gets there in 2019 in North Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know Fedora's contract situation. I want to say he signed a relatively new, lengthy contract with them a couple of years ago before they hit the skids, when they were still going strong, but they have not been good now for a couple of years. They're pretty much
2017, he signed a deal through the year 2022. But as we know, all those things are
What's
basically
the
worth
buyout?
being broken.
That's the key. What's the buyout?
I'm getting to it.
How much does North Carolina want to pay if they want him to go away? The funny thing too would be if he ended up at North Carolina, who's his first game against?
South Carolina.
Yeah. If he ends up against goes to Missouri, who does he play against sometime next year?
South Carolina.
Yeah,
at home.
That would be kind of a weird deal for sure.
The buyout is not small. We see.
Yeah, what is it?
I'm pulling it up here.
In the meantime,
Vamp, please. $14 million. Oof.
If they let him go.
Yes.
If they let him go, $14 million. Yeah, that's a lot to chew on. Even a program, drenched in money like North Carolina with their supporters.
If they keep him till 2019, it drops to $10.5 million. $7 million after 2020, $3.5 million after 2021. So they might have to bite the bullet for another year or two if they want to not necessarily save that money.
All right, 800-956-7266, the phone number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com, on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. The express lanes are open. You call in and we stop and jump right to your phone calls. You better grab them early because at the bottom of the hour, the coach and the quarterback will be here. Mike Morgan comes sailing through later on. Clay Hendricks, Jimbo Fisher, and the money coach, Fran Halloran.
What he's saying is we're stacked. Clemson Hoops got a big commit today.
Clemson Hoops picked up a very nice commitment. Alamir Dawes, a 6'1" point guard out of Elizabeth, New Jersey, committed to Clemson over primarily a bunch of Northeastern schools, and he's ranked 142nd by rivals. Never had a chance to talk to him or his coach despite repeated attempts to do so, so I really can't tell you what he's like personally. Or all I can tell you is from what I've read, he had a very good summer playing for his New Jersey AAU team. He averaged over 15 points and 4 assists per game. And the fact that Clemson loses its backcourt and will have really only two experienced guards back next year, that was a big reason why he chose Clemson. So that gives Clemson a fresh backcourt in the future of Chase Hunter at the 2 and Alamir Dawes at the point.
Yeah, you mentioned he had offers, took visits to Providence, Seton Hall, and St. John's. There's a heavy Big East feel to the footprint that was recruiting him. He also had interest from UConn, but never did visit UConn, had an offer from them. And, it's funny, they're going up there to play that game in Newark. So I think a lot of that particular situation kind of helps the fact that Clemson is trying to build a bit of a stronghold in New York. And you wonder if the ACC's kind of infiltration into the New York City tri-state area, having played the ACC tournament in Barclays, whether or not, Clemson's success here recently has also kind of mingled with the fact that they can get more Northeastern players in that footprint. And again, I know you want to try and recruit the state as well as you want to, and also recruit North Carolina just because a lot of basketball talent comes out of that state. Gabe DeVoe was one of their big gets from that state. But I do think if you can recruit the Northeast, you can get some pretty good players.
Well, what this tells me, too, and they really haven't had much interest in Miles Tate, the highly regarded 2020 point guard at Dorman, along with his now they do have interest, Clemson does, in his teammate, P.J. Hill, 6'9", 2020 prospect.
P.J. Hall.
P.J. Hall, I'm sorry. Yes, P.J. Hall. And so it tells me, of course, that that Clemson they've got the point guard that they wanted for the next 3 or 4 years. And that would help South Carolina, I would say, in their pursuit of Miles Tate, because Frank Martin does want Miles Tate, and he does want P.J. Hall as well, as they try to do a little package thing for those guys in 2020.
So, but do they take Tate after getting Trey Campbell? Or Trey Hannibal, rather. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Different classes. One will be here this year, one will be here the next year.
Yeah.
And I think they would take him. Yeah, I think they would take him. You can't have enough quality guards, can't have enough quality point guards as well.
Frank loves playing those point guards on the floor at the same time.
Yes, he does. He does indeed. And, it's listen, the game, especially in the NCAA tournament, it is a guard-dominated sport at the college level, and you got to have good guards. You got to have guards that can handle, guards that can penetrate, and guards that can shoot. All right, we don't have enough time to take a call here on the express lane just yet, so we will hit a break. Sorry, you got to call in before we get to break time, but we'll hit your calls when we come back. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. We've got plenty to talk about. We'll dive into USC and Texas A&M. I've made my pick.
Oh,
yeah, it's on paper, it's recorded, it's set in stone.
Uh-huh.
I do not flinch when I make a pick.
And you also, I know what you want to get into when we come back also. You want to talk about this Brian Bowen Sr. and how much he is just basically napalming all these schools across the country when it comes to basketball. Plenty to go around as well with the USC Texas A&M game. I don't know how you and I will see on this one. We might see differently.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
We're especially salty today. You.
I don't think so.
You've been rather curt in our first break. You've been rather curt with me. Curt
Gowdy?
You've been rather curt.
Kurt Gowdy is one of my favorite announcers of all time.
So, we were talking during the break. A&M travels on Thursday. It's so weird. They get the extra day in, and what Fisher said, and this isn't in part of the deal we're talking with later, but he basically said they trap them with their academic guys for about 3 to 4 hours in the morning on Friday, get all their classwork done in the morning, and then they practice in the afternoon on Friday, and they They feel like it gives them a better opportunity to kind of get a full night's rest, and they don't travel in on Friday, and they don't have to necessarily walk through. It takes care of everything.
I think that's a great idea. If you can pull it off with your school and your academic people and you can make it work, I think that's a great idea.
Well, when you pay your head coach $75 million over 10 years, you can afford to fly the entire academic group out to the road venues.
Keep talking for a second.
No, I'm not.
No, I want you to keep talking.
No, I'm not.
No, would you please tell me what's on your mind?
I'm not doing this.
Oh, we have to interrupt to go to the express lane.
Sometimes
which we had the stop sign on the express lane momentarily there to let. This is like 285. You have that red light when you try to get on 285, and then it blinks and you can go.
Right.
We go to
it's more of a you problem than me.
Myrtle Beach, and Bob in Myrtle Beach are first up on the express lane. We've got 9 minutes of express calls here on Sports Talk. You're first. Who's next?
Hi, guys. I was wondering on the South Carolina point guard from Florida, what's his eligibility status?
Best of our knowledge, and we'll find out. We'll find out more Monday when Frank talks to the media for the first time in the preseason as a group. That our information was that he's not going to be eligible for this season. We don't know anything different, do we?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, we don't know anything different. So the information we had going back a couple of weeks was that he would not be eligible.
The way that he has termed it in public is that he's still going through an academic issue. Our information from a very reliable source who would know basically tells us that he's not going to play. That's basically what they say. And that status is not going to change this year.
All right, thank you for the call. 800-956-7266. Express lanes are open. They are almost never open. Okay, so if you want a chance, especially to interrupt, we'll time your phone call accordingly.
Well, I'm just saying.
Like right now.
Just because of the fact that, again, we've had this report disputed by public comments from Frank. Listen, I feel very, very good about the source saying that he's not going to play.
Speaking of, I'll interrupt you. Speaking of Frank, I was thinking about this today as I was reading the stories coming out of New York and the trial up there.
Yes.
I think that they were very lucky that Brian Bowen Jr. Ended up moving on without playing at South Carolina. Not that South Carolina, by name has been involved with anything involved with this. They have not. They've not been accused of anything. But, back when Brian Bowen Jr. Arrived at South Carolina, Frank Martin told CBSSports.com back on January 11th, quote, he said, now he was relying on Chuck Martin, his assistant coach, who was working with the Bowens. And he said in this story, he said he trusts Bowen and trusts the family after meeting with them. Quote, Chuck said the mom is great and the dad is a good dude who got caught up with the wrong people, Martin said. I think that's kind of underselling, if you mind the use of that word, when it comes to Brian Bowen Sr.
He sounds like he's almost acting as an agent for the kid.
Well, I think he definitely is. I hate to use this word, but he's pimping his son out there to anybody who would bid.
That's your word, not mine.
Yeah, I'm okay to use it. He testified, if you haven't been following this, Brian Bowen Sr. testified that sports agent Christian Dawkins, one of the three defendants, told him that the Adidas original offer of $60,000 to $80,000 for his son to attend Louisville was increased to $100,000 because that is how much former recruit Billy Preston received to sign with Kansas. Bowen Sr. also said Dawkins relayed the following to him: $50,000 from Arizona from a former assistant coach, Pasternak. Ex-Oklahoma State assistant Lamont Evans, also indicted, former Gamecock assistant, but not involved at South Carolina, offered $8,000 for a car, $150,000 in cash, additional money for housing. Former Texas assistant Mike Morrell, the Longhorns would help with housing. Creighton said it would pay $100,000.
That's
and
the
get
one.
Bowen Sr. a good job.
That's the one that gets me, is if Creighton is offering $100K, what can these other schools offer? And the other part of this, too, that really just kind of stinks to high hell is that this is one guy we're talking about. And it's a guy, too, that, to be brutally honest, looked to me like he was more of a project coming in. What about some of these sure-thing kids? What are they getting?
Well, the other thing here, too, if you've been following this, this extends to the high school that the kid went to, La Lemure Academy in Indiana. He said that, this is Bowen Sr., said he was paid various amounts of cash for his son to play with certain AAU programs and to go to that school. He said he was offered $25,000 by Adidas program director TJ Gassanola, who is, I think, currently on the stand or was on the stand today to play for a team out of Michigan, at $5,000 to $8,000 to play for a Nike sponsored team, and $2,000 a month by the former coach at La Lemure. And so he decided to turn state's evidence and become a government witness in exchange for immunity. My point in all this is, this does not sound like a good dude who got caught up with the wrong people. Well, this sounds like a guy who was taking his son and saying, you want him, you got to grease my palm in many, many ways. And I think South Carolina was very lucky that this kid walked before he got them into trouble.
Well, I know you and I are on opposite sides of the whether or not they can earn money off their likeness bit. And I know that you value the whole value of the scholarship thing, and that's where you stand on that. I am not in favor of stuff like this, though. This under-the-table stuff that basically turns it into a bidding war. That's not the thing that I'm in favor of. I'm in favor of a centralized system, kind of like what Frank Martin's proposed, where they can earn money off their likeness. It goes into a trust, and they can get that money when they graduate. That's the kind of thing that I'd want to see, because I'd want them to be able to make money off their likeness, because I think that they can. I think they should be able to. But this particular stuff where you're paying guys to, just to play for a team and all this under-the-table negotiating, this underhanded stuff, I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to bore you with my position. It's been well stated for years how I feel about all that. I don't know that when you start doing anything related to paying somebody for their likeness or for what this or for that, now we're going to let high school kids, the top high school kids, have a chance to meet with agents. And I don't know where that's going to lead.
They do it in baseball.
Almost everything, but because they don't have the rules in place yet for basketball, like they have. Well, I guess they are now. They're putting in the rules. They're looking at it.
They're working towards trying to get to the same end game that baseball is. And I think
the baseball situation, but you have to have, if you're going to do that, then you've got to put in the commitment that when you pass on the pro sport and go to college, then it's I say 3-year waiting period. I think that's fair.
I don't think you're going to get 3, though. I think you're going to get 2. I think one is ridiculous. We both can agree one is ridiculous. I think 3 is unattainable. So I think you're going to end up settling on 2.
I think a lot depends on what the NBA Players Association has to say about this deal as well.
Well, the other thing, too, that the NBA, the problem with this whole thing is that they're flooding the development league, if you will, with players that there's just not enough spots for them. And so a lot of these guys are having to go to Europe to make money, or they're having to go, elsewhere to try and actually earn a living playing the game. Brian Bowen right now is in Australia. He's in Australia playing right now.
Hey, look, KJ McDaniels got cut today, or actually yesterday, by the Oklahoma City Thunder. PJ Dozier is, still trying to make it with the Celtics. I don't think he's going to make it. I think he'll be cut.
And even Sindarius is a guy who, let's be real, in another time period probably would be starting and getting valuable minutes, but right now he's struggling to get minutes at the Los Angeles Clippers.
Yeah, it's a tough deal. And imagine if PJ Dozier had stayed at South Carolina for another year, how much his game would have improved, and maybe he would have gotten that first-round pick and that big money.
I tell you what,
instead of just trying to avoid being a guy that goes back and forth to the G League and back up to the NBA.
The Gamecocks had PJ Dozier. They wouldn't have been 17-16 or 16-17, whatever the heck it was.
All right, we'll be back. We have the coach and the quarterback up a deer stand in a moment.
It is now time for our Thursday tradition, our chance to talk to the coach and the quarterback, Steve Tannehill and Chuck Reedy, in position and ready to go. By the way, we found out yesterday Will Merritt was in Connecticut.
He was in Connecticut, yes. He thought he was off since Clemson was off. I told him there's no off.
Well, he is
sports talk.
He is off just by nature.
Well,
he's just off.
That's your words. You can discuss that with Will next time you see him.
That's what you say.
We have to talk quietly because Steve Tannehill is up in a deer stand somewhere. We don't want to scare the deer.
That's right.
Be very quiet.
Can they hear us?
Can the deer
hear us?
Not right now. There's no deer in front of me, so there's.
This is crazy. Have you had any success so far today?
No, not today.
Yeah.
I've seen one.
Seen one.
Yeah.
That's not good. Okay. Well, we're going to not talk too loud. We have Coach Reedy. Coach Reedy, are you there?
I'm here.
How was Turks and Caicos, Chuck?
Well, actually, we went to St. Thomas, and it was very nice. Thank you.
He's got houses all over the world. This guy. That Baylor money still.
I'm trying to sell a house,
That Baylor money still doing.
Trying to sell.
Good work for you, isn't it?
I'm in the buyer's market for a house in the Caribbean. I'm in a buyer's.
No, he's
market.
talking about Columbia House.
I've got one on Lake Murray for sale. Okay.
I can't give you that.
Hey, Steve,
let's
start with you because I know you're up against it. If a poor deer walks up, you're going to take care of business. I think it'd be cool to hear the rifle go off while we're on the air. Can you just shoot it for us?
Special SC Wild on Thursday.
No, I can't do it unless something walks out.
Well, Steve, the Gamecock quarterback, I feel like I have to whisper, the Gamecock quarterback situation. What'd you think of Scarnecchia last week?
I thought he played really well. I thought he played a good game. I think they kept it pretty easy for him. But I love the last drive, and man, that tight end came wide open in the middle of the field, made a good throw, and I thought he showed a lot of poise. I really thought he played a good game. I think the team as a whole fought through a lot of adversity with the weather, and a couple messed up punts, and I think it was a big win. And even the kicker, that kicker went through a lot last year when he missed a few, and for him to hit a game winner, I was happy. But I think the quarterback played well.
Yeah, Steve, one thing that really impressed me was how he stood in the pocket and he let the pressure come to him, and he got rid of it. And he put the ball on the money a lot of times, and he didn't throw any picks. He didn't put the ball in jeopardy.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons that our team last year won 9 games. We were, with the turnover margin, and I'm not sure what it is. I don't think we're winning that probably so far along this year. But I thought he made some great clutch throws, especially to Edwards, in tight windows where only Brian could catch it. And I really thought he played a good football game. And that's what you hope the backup quarterback can do, is come in there and play. And definitely a highlight for him, and a big win for the team.
Talking with Steve Tannehill and Chuck Reedy. It's coaching the quarterback here on Sports Talk. Chuck, I want to bring you in here at least to kind of assess this from the coaching perspective. And Steve, you can also chime in as well. As far as handling things this week, they've said all the right things about Bentley. If he's healthy enough to go, he will go. How do you handle this if you are a head coach? Because you obviously have a fan base whose appetite seems starved for change, but obviously you have an established starter who's coming off an injury.
Yeah, well, Jake Bentley's a starting quarterback, and our policy always was, a starter doesn't lose his job because of an injury. So Bentley certainly, should come back as a starting quarterback. Now, obviously, Scarnecchia, as Steve has already alluded to, he showed a lot, and what it does give him another option. But hopefully the fans aren't going to make this a bad situation. Bentley's done a lot of good things. He struggled at times this year, but he's still a guy that can win for South Carolina, and if he's healthy, he certainly needs to be the guy.
Steve?
I'm not sure. It's a tough call, especially how the last drive. And I agree, you don't lose your job because of injury, but I don't know. That's what they pay the coaches all that money to do, is make the tough decision. I think Jake's the guy, don't get me wrong, but that's a tough situation to be in especially with the last drive to win the game. But I agree that Jake is the better player, and then that's why he's, the guy. But that's a tough situation. It is good that Jake knows now there's someone right behind him that can step in and play, and he needs to pick up his game a little bit.
All right, it's the Coach and the Deer Hunter here on Sports Talk. Sounds like a movie. Coach,
I got a buck right in front of me right now, fellas.
Uh-oh.
He's too small.
He's too small.
Let's don't be violating. DNR monitors this show, Steve, so be careful. They'll be there in 30 seconds.
He probably ran right by three of us. There's three of us on this back half of this property, and I think he probably ran by all three of us and got to me last. They all let him go because he's too small.
What a big heart. Big heart. All right, Chuck. I know you and Larry Fedora, I guess you won't mind me exposing this. I know you and Larry Fedora are friends from way back. You know him pretty well. You know any insight on his interest in Kelly Bryant?
No, I don't, although I know he needs a quarterback, and certainly that would be a great fit. I think Kelly would fit in very well with what Larry wants to do offensively. That would be a very good situation for Kelly, and would be a really good addition for Larry, because they, when they lost the boy early in the draft, they were expecting to have back for another year last year. Mm-hmm. They've really struggled last year and this year at quarterback. So it could be a good situation for both of them.
Does he turn them from a 3 to 4 win team to a respectable team in the ACC?
Well, yeah, I think he could be worth 2 or 3 ball games. It's no secret now. I mean, Larry, they need to get that thing turned around. They just haven't done a really good job recruiting, and I don't know why. I know they were under, the NCAA thing for a long time, probably hurt, but North Carolina State has recruited well, and of course Clemson has gone in, and taken Lawrence and taken a few players that out of the state, and they just haven't been able to lock the state down like Mac Brown did, and that was Larry's objective, and that was his plan when he got the job, and he just hadn't been able to do that.
All right, now let's talk about Clemson coming off of their win Saturday, a 60-point win, Chuck, at Wake Forest, and Wake Forest, their defense was just pathetic against Clemson. Just ran the ball right through them like they weren't even there. What did you see? Just domination up front by Clemson's offensive line?
Well, yeah, and Idion is. I mean, he may be as good a running back as there is in the country. I mean, I haven't seen anybody better. Alabama's got 3 that are really good, but they don't have one that's better than him. And then, obviously they brought, Dixon came in, and, they had 3 of them over 100 yards. But yeah, it was just total domination. When Clemson, if they want to play now, it'll be hard for anybody to beat them. What they're doing right now, they're obviously taking some pressure off of Trevor Lawrence, and they know that Idion, he can take the pressure off, and then Lawrence, he'll get better and better and gain more confidence, and by the end of the year they'll be they're going to be a force to reckon with.
How would you rate, Chuck, Clemson's case to the nation and case to the committee as they play these games? Because these lopsided victories are a help, but they also could hurt the strength of the conference.
Yeah, well, this is the first one that they've really, run up some points. They other than this game, I mean, they haven't done anything special. And the league is so weak. I mean, it's so weak that, I don't know what else. I mean, all they can do is try to, run up the score. NC State in 2 weeks, that'll be the toughest game they've got left. Now Boston College on the road could be a trap game, but if they play, it's up, halfway up to their talent, their level, then there's nobody on their schedule that's going to beat them.
All right, hang on. We got to hit a quick break. Steve, hope you can hang with us. Don't go shoot anybody. We'll be right back.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. As we continue, again, over the next couple of weeks, we'll be keeping a monitor on SEC Basketball Media Days from Birmingham and also ACC Operation Basketball the following week. We're also going to hear from Frank Martin on Monday, so that'll be an interesting chance for us to at least get some stuff out of him. We continue the football talk, though, with the coach and the QB, Chuck Reedy and Steve Tannehill, for a couple more minutes. You wanted to follow up on Chuck's comments about Clemson's committee case, if you will.
Well, yeah, Coach, I just wanted to ask you, things are starting to shape up, and there's a lot of football left to be played, and there's going to be some defining games down the road, though really it does not look like Clemson has many. You mentioned NC State, and that could be one next week. I mean, State can throw it around a little bit, but they lost so much on defense. And and then, South Carolina the last week, we'll see where the Gamecocks are when that game rolls up. But let's say, the way things play out the way we expect, and there's, say, 5 teams undefeated come the end of the season, and Notre Dame is one of those teams, and Clemson's in the mix. I mean, can Clemson survive what will be a strong field by the committee to want to make sure, and how the politics play out, they're going to want to make sure Notre Dame is in that 4. Can Clemson survive that kind of a push from the outside?
Well, obviously there's not going to be 5 undefeated teams because either Georgia or Alabama, one is going to have a loss. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I could see now if they all won out and Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC game, I could see Clemson getting left out just by strength of schedule. If Georgia wins out, now I mean they've still got. They've got Auburn, they've got LSU. They've got a tough schedule. Alabama's still got some tough games. Ohio State's got some tough games. But, if that were to be the case. Or I could also see Clemson get in, but be undefeated and be ranked fourth behind some one-loss teams just because of their schedule.
Well,
and that's just the way it is. It's not, it's not their fault. But, there's just nobody. I guess it'll be Miami come out of the other division, and they're just an average football team.
Yeah. And, if Alabama and Georgia are undefeated and playing in the SEC championship, and it's a close down to the wire finish.
Right. Yep.
There's gonna be a lot of belly aching about making sure both of those teams get in. How do you leave one of those
that's
out?
what I'm saying. If that would have happened and Ohio State wins out, Clemson could get left out, be undefeated and get left out. That I could see that happening.
Steve, South Carolina has never beaten A&M. These two coaches know each other very well, back to their time in the Sunshine State and also back to their time at LSU and Auburn together. What's the secret to breaking the streak for USC?
Well, I think we got to play, probably our best game of the year and keep the turnovers down and keep it close. We can't go into this game and have a turnover in the first series and, give them a freebie. We got to be clean in the special teams. I think the stadium's going to be in our favor. I think that people will pack it. I think a lot of them might have skipped last week because it was a mean game and hot again. But this week looks perfect. If they can get here, that area where they're coming from wasn't too hurting this hurricane. But I really think they got a good chance. But they got to play a clean game and probably the best game they've played all year to win. I don't know that Texas A&M is the greatest team in the world, but they've battled some tough competition and know how to play. So it's going to be a big challenge, but I definitely think we can win.
Yeah, I mean, they've been prone in the matchups that they've played. It's not like they've blown them out. I mean, there have been a couple, at least the last two have been, games where South Carolina's been in them. Three, in fact. A couple of years ago, they really took us to the woodshed at home. In 14, yeah.
Yes, for a bunch of touchdowns, but the past is the past. We got a young team, and I think came a little of age last week with the way they played. So hopefully the confidence isn't overconfidence, and we learn how to put two wins together. Hopefully, and I'm excited. I think they got a good chance.
Chuck, if the quarterback bags a deer, you interested in starting up some venison hamburgers? That wouldn't be hamburger. Venison burgers there at the comeback shack?
No, we're good just like we are.
We're talking fresh now. We're talking right.
Yeah, I know. I understand. No, we're good. We're good. Yeah, man.
Okay, let me ask you before we let you go. Can the Gamecocks pull what would be an upset? They're the underdog. Can they pull the upset on Saturday? How they do it?
I agree with Steve. They're going to play the best game they played all year. I think A&M's a good football team. South Carolina last week was huge. Because their season was fixing to go down the tubes. You're looking now at A&M. You're looking Florida on the road is going to be very difficult, and Clemson on the road. That gives them if they win the others, that's 6 wins. So in order to have anywhere near the kind of season that everybody was hoping for, they need to win Saturday, but it's going to be tough.
Guys, we thank you as always. Steve, thank you for taking time out from the deer. Want to thank us for taking your eye off the target there for a few minutes. You could have bagged a couple, but we thank you, sir, and be safe out there. Okay. Oh, he's gone.
He already.
And thank you, Chuck. Is Chuck still there?
Thank you, man.
Right.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Coach.
That was very good.
Yeah, lines popping all over the place. Yeah, we did Bambi a favor there.
We did
by getting Steve with us. All right, let me do the recruiting here very quickly, and then we'll continue with your phone calls here on this Thursday night. What else we have coming up?
We have Mike Morgan coming up second hour. We've got Clay Hendricks, Furman head coach, Jimbo Fisher, Fran Halloran, packed second hour to come. Indeed.
And our phone number, 800-956-7266. Again, leading off the recruiting, the news out of New Jersey of a commitment for Clemson. 6'1" point guard Alamir Dawes, Elizabeth, New Jersey, chose the Tigers over Seton Hall and St. John's. He also considered Connecticut, LaSalle, St. Joseph's, TCU, Wichita State, they were all on his short list. He joined 6'3" Chase Hunter of Atlanta in Clemson's 19 class. Of course, the Tigers lose their starting backcourt of Mitchell and Reed after this season, and that was one of the reasons why he wanted to go to Clemson, the chance to play early and contribute into a program that he thinks is on the way up. He had a big summer with his New Jersey AAU club, averaging over 15 points and 4 assists per game. Rivals ranks him 142nd in the 2019 class. Also in basketball today, Juwan Purdue, 6'6" forward out of Lakewood, committed to Jacksonville State. In some football news now, reports last night from the website Inside Carolina that former Clemson quarterback Kelly Bryant will take an unofficial visit to the Tar Heels this weekend when they play Virginia Tech. That would be his first visit since he announced his transfer. Sources have told us that at least 9 other programs have reached out to him, including Mississippi State, Arkansas, Fresno State, and Georgia State. This afternoon, Woody Womack of Rivals reported that Bryant told him he'll also take an official to Arkansas next weekend. He's also looking at Louisville and Missouri for other official visits. Safety Lewis Klein of Cedar Hill, Texas, committed to Georgia. Clemson was among his offers. I believe he's a teammate of Shiloh Sanders. I think that's the same school. Defensive end Nolan Smith, a Georgia commitment, tweeted on Wednesday that he plans to take his 5 official visits, starting with Alabama. Clemson has been one of his top schools as well. Spring Valley place kicker Alex Herrera was at USC last Saturday for the Missouri game. He's ranked 15th as a place kicker and 25th as a punter by Cole's professional kicking camps. USC commit defensive end Joe Anderson will visit this weekend for Texas A&M. 2020 Clemson offensive line target Paul Chio, Alpharetta, Georgia, was offered by Ole Miss. He's had a top 3 of Clemson, Alabama, and Georgia. He is scheduled to visit Alabama this weekend. And USC baseball landed a commitment from 2021 right-hander Caleb Gamp of Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. I think I mentioned that yesterday because I remember us talking about Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania.
You'll be happy, Corn. No Carolina script this week with the helmets. They're going white helmets, black on black with the tops and bottoms for Carolina.
Well, they should be happy. It looks better. I don't care. They can wear what they want to, but it just doesn't look good.
I like the Carolina script.
Well, you've got bad taste. I can't.
Carolina script beat Missouri.
There's no counting for bad taste. I can tell you that.
Speak for yourself there, sir.
All right, it's top of the hour. We'll be back.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We will be monitoring a couple of different things here this hour. We'll talk to Clay Hendricks, Furman head coach, about the big rivalry game against Wofford. Jimbo Fisher, we'll hear from him. We'll also talk to the money coach, Fran Halloran. USC running back A.J. Turner will not play Saturday, according to Will Muschamp, who is on his call-in show. We'll also give you any more updates on that. The surgeries for Trey Smith and Eldridge Thompson also happened this week. They're hoping to get another year of eligibility for Eldridge Thompson, who went out with that injury earlier this season. You had a recruiting note you wanted to pass along as well involving USC men's basketball target.
Yes. The state newspaper tonight has an update on Dante Scott, USC basketball target, who made a recent official visit. He's out of Philadelphia, and the people around him are very close to Dawn Staley, and plus USC has been recruiting him from Imhotep High School for a while. That's the same high school that David Beatty came from, and don't know if that's good or bad since Beatty only lasted one season at South Carolina. Anyway, the report is that he could have his decision by the end of this weekend. And it's South Carolina, Maryland, Seton Hall, LaSalle, and Temple. And that's what people close to him, one of his advisors, told Adam Ranspecker of the state newspaper, GoGamecocks.com.
Andrew Ramspacher.
I'm sorry, Andrew, yes. Also, his AAU coach said the same thing.
Call me by my rightful name. It's time to call Mike Morgan by his rightful name as he comes on for his weekly spot with us. Morgan on the Move, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union, the mortgage team, more equipped than ever to help you with the mortgage process. FoundersFCU.com/mortgage, and by BP Skinner Clothiers. People nationwide get their custom-made suits and accessories from Brent Skinner, located in the Vista, or no matter where you are, Brent will come to you. BPSkinnerClothiers.com to set up an appointment.
Okay, Mike, good to have you with us back here on Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
We're good. We're good. So South Carolina survived Missouri with a backup quarterback going back to Jake Bentley. I don't think anybody with a clear mind is bothered by that. I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I think we all agree, those of us who've been following the team, that it's the right move to go back to Bentley. He is still the better quarterback, but it is nice to know that they've got maybe somebody in the background who can help them if the offense struggles or if something else happens to Bentley.
Yeah, I think just judging, and I actually watched a good bit of that game because I've got Missouri coming up, not this weekend, but the following weekend, and kind of watching Scarnecchia carve up that defense, which has been suspect. And that's the first thing I would point out, to take nothing away from Scarnecchia, but it's a little bit different making those throws against Mizzou versus Florida and Kentucky, versus Kentucky and Georgia. You know, it's just a gross difference of talent and overall effectiveness with those two defenses. So if you wanted to go ahead and have a new guy shine, a guy that's only thrown, about 20 passes in his career, that's a good defense to do it against from an SEC standpoint. That being said, I agree with you. I do think a lot of the frustration from Gamecock fans, or a lot of the maybe push for Scarnecchia, if you believe social media polls or what have you, it's less about how great Scarnecchia looked, and it's more about where's the progress of Jake Bentley, and I think it's a legitimate question. I've been a Jake Bentley proponent for a couple of years now, and I must admit, I mean, I thought by this time he'd be a little more effective. I think the talent is there. I know from a fact, doing the Gamecock game last year and sitting in a room and talking to him for 15, 20 minutes. I mean, the guy is ridiculously bright and savvy and cerebral and every other adjective you want to throw his way. But that doesn't always show up in his decision-making on the field. And, you know, to go back to that Kentucky game, a couple of open targets where he simply underthrew them, that's something that physically was hard to understand. So I think this, to me, is as big a start for Jake Bentley as he's had in his time at Carolina, because I think that there's a lot of people that are going to start being overly critical if he has a bad game. That might be fair, it might not be fair, but that's the reality of it. It's a huge game for the Gamecocks, as you guys know, and it's a winnable game. for Carolina. But they're not going to win it without a good performance by Jake Bentley. So he has to step up his play a little bit better than what he has shown thus far this year.
Well, you look at what Will Muschamp and company might be putting together from an offensive game plan, and it would be easy to say just stand back there and throw it, because we saw what Texas A&M did against Kentucky defensively and really shut down a great rushing offense, something USC could not do. They're only giving up 82.5 yards per game on the ground and about 245 through the air. Is it simple enough to say, stand back there with Jake and see if Jake can carve up their secondary with their passing game?
It might be. I mean, I think part of the game plan against Kentucky, and it certainly would be the game plan I would have, is don't let Benny Snell beat you, put the game in Terry Wilson's hands. Still kind of an unproven quarterback by some standards. And it's not that he played terribly, but he's just a guy that he's not going to beat you on his own. He doesn't have that ability as of right now. Jake Bentley has shown that he does have that ability. He has shown it in spurts. And so I'm not sure if A&M is going to play a Gamecock offense with maybe a more capable quarterback and, quite frankly, maybe no Benny Snell in the backfield. Benny Snell is one of the best running backs in the country. I don't know if I would say that about any of Carolina's tailbacks at this point in time. So I would expect them to maybe come up with a little bit different philosophy. But you're right. I mean, that is the soft spot of that defense. And while they have shored up a lot of things and they've been stout against the run, there is a toughness in year one under Jimbo and his staff that, quite frankly, was not there for a number of years under Kevin Sumlin. So it's a more physical A&M team, even though they're not, the roster is almost identical to what it was a year ago when most people considered it an underachieving team, an underachieving program. That's why they made a coaching change. But they're playing with a little more zest and a little more physical and a little more urgency. So that's what makes this a very tough opponent on Saturday. And not to mention, Travion Williams, if he played for another school in the SEC, I think a lot more people would be familiar with him. But he's a good back at A&M. 2 years ago, he ran for over 1,000. Last year, he took a step back. But I think they're going to try and pound him into that Gamecock defense, which has been suspect against the run all year.
ESPN and SEC play-by-play man Mike Morgan joining us for our weekly edition of Morgan on the Mood. Clemson Tiger fans will be rooting for Tigers with different kinds of stripes this weekend as LSU hosts Georgia. If you think anything about where the crowded elite is amongst the projected college football playoff rankings, Clemson needs some people to lose. Does LSU have what it takes to possibly end the Bulldogs' perfect season in the other Death Valley?
I think it's possible. Look, I mean, Georgia's not been that impressive, and quite frankly, this is the most marquee opponent they've had all year. They haven't had a signature win. It's not their fault. It's just that the schedule is kind of backloaded, and they're going to have a chance to prove themselves a lot more, beginning with this game and games like Auburn and games like Florida. So it's not as if Georgia will have to apologize for its schedule by late November. But as of right now, it hasn't been great, and LSU certainly provides some challenges that a lot of the other opponents that they've had do not. I think LSU, maybe a loss by LSU actually makes this game tougher for Georgia, I believe, because I think LSU is riding a little bit of a cloud of invincibility that was not justified. I don't think they're that good, but now you lose a game, you get kind of sent back down to earth a little bit, you recalibrate, and maybe you play with a little less cockiness and a little more sense of we got to get back to what was working really well. I think it's an interesting game too, in that if you're Georgia, I mean, Georgia's like so many other teams right now in this league. It's a foregone conclusion to most people that Alabama is going to win the SEC. And if that's the case, your margin for error, if you're Georgia, even if you win the Eastern Division, if you lose against LSU and then you lose against Alabama, you're done. You're cooked. Two-loss team is not going to the playoff. If you beat LSU and you lose to Alabama by a slight margin, and then you hope Notre Dame doesn't go undefeated, et cetera, you still got a shot. So in a lot of ways, as crazy as it sounds, I think it's almost a must-win for Georgia if they're going to get back to where they were a year ago, and that's playing for a national championship.
As always, Mike, we appreciate it, man. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great, guys.
Thank you much. Morgan on the Move here on Sports Talk.
Per Will Muschamp, he has said that Jake Bentley will start Saturday on his call-in show. So I guess he's good enough to go when it comes to the knee. Furman head coach Clay Hendricks joins us next to talk about the big rivalry game with Wofford.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Welcome back to Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. As the page turns here this week, we start to kind of look at some of the other things around the state. Again, if you missed it earlier, we told you that Jake Bentley is going to start per head coach Will Muschamp on his call-in show, which he'd said at the top of the hour. So it will be Bentley, not Skarnecki, to start for South Carolina against Texas A&M, 3:30 SEC Network. The big game in the state in the SoCon pits two of the oldest rivals in the Deep South, Wofford and Furman. They met twice last year, once in the regular season to lead it off and once in the playoffs. And their head coach of the Paladins is Clay Hendricks.
And Coach Hendricks joins us here on Sports Talk. Coach, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing great, Phil. Coach
be with you.
You too, sir. Thank you for joining us. You know, we've been talking about revolving doors at quarterback this season at a number of different places, and your place is no exception. You've kind of had that going on, and from the beginning of the season with Clemson and moving on through your schedule to this point, and with Harris Roberts returning as your starting quarterback a couple of games back. What's your situation going into this Wofford game? You've had a couple of weeks to get some more practice in and work things out. How does it look at quarterback for you going in? I think I asked him a question that just took his breath away. There you go.
I'm sorry I lost you there. I think
Yeah.
I'm with you. I know you asked me about quarterback. Yeah, you did. You know, our starter, Harris Roberts, missed the first 5 weeks with a broken thumb. Kind of freak accident first week, so it put us in a little bit of a tailspin. And, you know, kind of spent the time playing with a freshman, a true freshman, a redshirt freshman. But we kind of settled in the last 2 weeks, got Harris back, and, I think we played significantly better since we got him back in there.
Well, you started last year 1-3, or 1-3 this year, so you kind of been in this situation before. And of course, last year you got on a roll at about this stage of the season and took it all the way into the postseason. Can you see sort of the same thing happening with this year's team? Do you see enough of that in this year's team?
Well, what's been kind of interesting about it is I think in a lot of ways we're the football team. We certainly lost P.J. Blaze-Jackson had a great year for us at quarterback, and just missing him, not having any really guy that we could just depend on there, for the first part of the season, certainly challenged us. And then, the schedule hadn't been real friendly to us either. We played a couple of really good opponents. We had a game canceled. So it's been really hard just to get a little consistency. But I do feel like, I like our team. We're a really young match, and just kind of try to keep improving. And I don't think we worry about the season. We just need to try to go play well this week.
Talking to Clay Hendricks, head coach of the Furman Paladins. Is there anything, I guess, you can kind of take from your previous experiences with Wofford and bring it to this game? I know that they do pretty much some of the same philosophical things offensively, but a new head coach has kind of put in some new wrinkles. Do you notice a difference from them on film?
Really, I don't see much of a difference. Wade Lang, the long-time offensive coordinator, still there. He's always done a great job. I know maybe trying to fill it a little bit more. Defensively, they're really similar, structure to what they've always done. You can see a few little differences. But, they had a pretty good, they were playing pretty good football. Certainly they were comparisons, and I don't see a lot to change. Really, just a team that doesn't really show any weaknesses anywhere. And then they're an older group, and one of the things we said, we're such a young group. I think 27 of our top 44 guys are freshmen and sophomores. And, it's just a situation we just need to kind of continue to go up and try to keep improving.
In your film study of the Terriers, and as Will alluded to, new coaching staff, but still doing a lot of the same things they did under Coach Ayers. But I know one thing Coach Conklin wanted to do was put a little bit more of a passing game threat into his offense. Do you have to take that into consideration? Do you see that from what you've done in studying them and preparing for the game?
You can see that. Yeah, I think one of the things that was obvious to me that they're more talented as obviously than they do it. And, anytime you can run football as well as they have, it's going to create some opportunities for you. It's funny, they really haven't been challenged a lot in those games that they played. Probably, the one game was the Wyoming game, and and so they've kind of been able to mix things. I don't know if it comes down to it, how much they're going to mix it, but you certainly see a few more balls in the air, and they have some guys that can be dangerous enough to get them in space, and they have a quarterback who's really athletic. He's more than capable of hitting some throws, and anytime you play a team that runs it that well, it's going to create some opportunities to make some big plays in the passing game, and they're certainly taking advantage of that.
Talking to Clay Hendricks, head coach of Furman. You mentioned the fact that the schedule was not kind. Mother Nature was not as well, having to cancel that Colgate game. So you've really only been able to play one game in the state. You will not leave the state of South Carolina until pretty much near the end of the season. Your final 2 games are on the road, and the only road game you have between now and VMI is at the Citadel. How much does it help to be able to be back inside your home building, not only for the rivalry game, but just to kind of control your own environment as much as possible here over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I think we've always, felt like we were a pretty good football team at home. I think we've won, I don't know, I think maybe we lost the first game we got here last year. Those came to eat on, and then I think we've won every home game since then. So, certainly being home, there's no comfort with that, and not having to get on the road. And historically, this has been a tough place to play, and we're trying to return it, back to that. And what's kind of odd is you're sitting in the middle of October, and it finally comes off a little bit this afternoon, and we're playing our second home game. So that's been really kind of odd. But getting to be here again, I do really go down to Charleston. So, schedule-wise, from the chance to play at home certainly helps us. And I would certainly enjoy doing that anytime we get the opportunity. So I think, we can take advantage of that. And, at the end of the day, you still got to go play well. You got to play well whether you're home or on the road. But I think our kids are certainly excited about playing at home on Saturday.
Well, this is, of course, an important game for a lot of reasons. It's a rivalry game for you. Wofford's won the last 4, but they've all been competitive. You guys played twice last year. You lost a 1-point game in Spartanburg, and then lost an 18-point game in the postseason. So I know it's important for you guys to not only win from the standpoint of the league race, but the rivalry game and all that. You've had that extra week of preparation. What has been your focus, or what things have you focused on in your off week just to improve your team? Not so much focusing on Wofford, but things that you felt like you needed to shore up on your own team.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about last week was things that, my number one goal is let's improve some of the football. And, one of the things that we really struggled with just the details of doing the things that you have to do to play well and improve. And I think a lot of times that's pretty natural when you have a group that's as young as we've got. We spent a couple of days really working really hard at that phase of it, and going against each other a lot. I think the adjustment to play Wofford, we do a lot of the same things, both offensively and defensively. So it's not like one of those weeks where you have to just make drastic changes. When you see a team that's vastly different from you. So, we did that. We certainly were a little bit ahead of the curve this week when we started practice. Monday was more like a season thing, and we tried to let up a little bit the last day or two. And but it has been the bye week was that much different than it's had most weeks. Just trying to get a little better each day that we go out there.
Coach, we thank you as always, and good to have you back in terms of the in-season action after a week away, and good luck to you Saturday against Wofford. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
That'd be great. It's great being with you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Clay Hendricks from Furman and the Paladins and the Terriers, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Yes, Hunter Reed, the SID at Furman. He tells Auburn and Georgia to stick their stats where the sun don't shine. Furman Wofford is the longest running rivalry in the Deep South.
By 3.
He says.
By 3, I believe.
Yeah.
The Clemson got some good recruiting news today. South Carolina might do tomorrow with their basketball recruiting, possibly.
Yeah. Tweeted out just a few moments ago, Wildens Levesque, the 6'9" forward out of, he's from Brockton, Massachusetts. He goes to school in Maine, is going to announce South Carolina, VCU, and UMass.
You can't beat the Minutemen for a recruit. You might as well quit.
Well, he is from Massachusetts.
I don't care.
USC got the most recent official visit last weekend. We'll see if that weighs heavily on him or not.
What conference does UMass play in?
The Atlantic 10?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we'll be right back.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. You had some more on Wildens Levesque's announcement tomorrow.
Yeah, he's told us that it's going to be at 11:30 in the morning tomorrow. And so I imagine, I don't know if they're doing I don't know the details of how he's doing it, if he's just putting it on Twitter or they're having a little ceremony at the school or just what. But it'll be 11:30 in the morning, USC, UMass, and VCU. Now, I hear what you're saying, but he did tell me in one of my interviews with him that the home state school was something that was kind of important to him.
Again,
I don't know if it's strong enough to carry the day, but UMass has a pretty good basketball history.
Corn.
Have you heard of a guy named
Marcus Camby?
Dr. J?
Marcus Camby and Dr. J.
Wait a minute. The first name that comes to your mind when you think of UMass is Marcus Stinking Camby?
I'm a Knicks fan. That's because he was a Knick.
Julius Irving? Huh? Right. Brian agrees with me.
I've heard of Julius
right
Irving.
there tells all our people what they need to know about you.
That's one.
Anyway.
One player who graduated from UMass in 1971. Between Marcus Camby and Julius Irving, that's all. That's it.
They've had
Finito.
More than that. They've had more than that. Let's talk real quick about the Gamecock basketball recruiting since things are starting to heat up for them a little bit. So they've got Trey Hannibal set, 6'2" guard. You actually see, I have him as a shooting guard. I know he can play point. He's probably a combo guard. Dante Scott, going to announce by the end of the weekend. Wildens Levesque tomorrow. They are still involved with Gerald Drumgoole, 6'5" guard. Those are the ones that we know about that they've been actively involved with, guys who have visited. So those are the ones you have to assume that they have a chance to get. If they now, I did check with Drumgoole earlier this week, and nothing new was going on with him. So I don't know. I'll double check with him maybe tonight to see if he's getting closer. He goes to that La Lemure school in Indiana. I don't know if all of a sudden dudes there are off the radar because of the testimony coming out of New York. But let's say Martin is able to get Dante Scott, a 6'6" small forward out of Philly, who had some other good offers, and able to get Wildens Levesque out of Massachusetts to add with Trey Hannibal. I mean, that's not bad. That's a good-looking threesome. I still say you got to get the best players in your state if you can. If you can. At least get them to visit.
It's better than getting a forward out of Canada and a guy out of Lithuania. At least we're staying in the States now.
Well, there's nothing wrong with getting if the guy from Canada is a heck of a player, what's wrong with that? If the guy from Lithuania is a great – I got no problem with that. But if you have an equally good player in your own state, get him. I say the same thing to Brad Brownell.
Again.
That's more yours. Schools cannot continue to let top 50 players in the state leave. By the way, one more thing I want to mention about the trial up in New York. Testimony today was going on, and it was pretty explosive stuff. And it was more, we talked about Brian Bowen's dad, what was happening there. Well, today on the witness stand, you had the Gasinola guy, Gasinola, and he spilled the beans on a bunch of stuff. NC State, for example, Dennis Smith, their former star, who's now with the Mavericks, and we're talking about $40,000. But Orlando Early is the guy implicated here, a former Gamecock assistant coach. And, of course, you've got Lamont Evans implicated as well, a former Gamecock assistant coach. South Carolina, unfortunately for them, it got their name mentioned all over this situation. Fortunately for them, none of this took place while these guys were at South Carolina, as far as we know. Now, you have to ask the question, well, if they were doing this at NC State and at Oklahoma State, is it conceivable they were doing it at South Carolina, but we just don't know about it?
If they've been doing it, they've been doing it well enough.
Well, right. They didn't do it well enough to get whoever they were trying to buy. But, I mean, it's I got no sympathy for these coaches, to be honest with you, because I know the people say, hey, these players deserve to get money for their likenesses and everything that they do.
That's not how I sound.
And the jock straps that they wear, they should be able to get paid for that.
That's not how I sound.
These coaches know the rules, and they knew what they were doing not only was against NCAA rules, but against the law. And they got caught and now they should never be allowed to coach again in college. I'm sorry.
Looking at this, honored members of UMass basketball history: Irving, Canby, Al Skinner.
Were you even listening to one thing I just said?
George Burke, and Lou Rowe.
Do you even listen when I talk?
I do, but I just
Why do you just go to a different subject when I'm making a point? Can you not follow up on the point that I'm saying?
Because you and I disagree on that point. And
what's your point?
My point is they should be able to make money on their likeness.
So it's okay for the assistant coach. I'm talking about the assistant coaches. It's okay for them to sell the rights to the players. Then you agree with that?
I don't agree with that.
Should the assistant coaches get their palms greased too?
I don't agree that it should be their duty to do that. But I've told you the model that I want in place. I want them to be able to make money off their likeness, to have everything have a value.
I'm talking about the assistant coaches. I'm not talking about the players.
No, I don't like
the issue here is if a player can make money off his likeness, then why can't an assistant coach get paid under the table for delivering a player to an agent?
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Well, one thing is going to lead to the next. I can promise you that. Again, when there's money involved, the trail is going to be lengthy and spread out in many different directions.
I want a standard value placed on any way that they can make money on their likeness, have that money put into a trust. They get their hands on it when they leave the school. I know you hate it. I know this is a terrible, brave new world for you, but I believe they should be allowed to make money off their license because a regular student can make money while they're in school. They can't. Why not?
A regular student doesn't have his college education paid for.
A regular student doesn't provide the kind of money towards an athletic program that the regular student
I provide money towards Learfield. Do I get paid the same amount of money as the people who sit on our executive board?
No.
Okay. Well, that's the way the world works. I'm sorry.
But here's the thing.
You have the people who do the work and provide the money, and then you have people who sit up here who get most of the money.
But here's the thing. You're getting paid as a result of a job.
Well, I'm not in college now. I'm not getting a free education. I'm working. It's called a job, a job.
People in college work and they get money for jobs that they have to pay for that college.
For college athletes get paid for playing their sport. It's called a scholarship.
No, they get a scholarship. They don't get paid.
Do you know what they get?
They don't get money. Yeah, they get gear and they get food and they get cost of attendance. That's about it.
Wrong. You get. Let's just use South Carolina for example.
Okay.
You get, if you are a 4-year student, $30,000 a year. You get $120,000.
You don't get.
Can I finish?
Yes.
Then shut up. You get $120,000 scholarship over 4 years.
You get money to attend the school. That's about it.
What does shut up mean?
I'm telling you, you're
you
saying
get $120,000 in scholarship to pay for your education. Okay, ask any parent who has to pay for a college education or take a student loan out that they're going to be paying back for the rest of their lives if that doesn't mean something. Okay,
ask any of those kids whether they'd rather have the $120,000 cash or whether they want that education.
Well, with the rules changing, then go turn pro coming out of high school like the baseball players can do. You get a stipend that more than covers your needs because when you are—
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
It does not.
Yes, it does. You have, the NCAA has come up with a number of different plans that if you have to have an emergency trip home, you have to go home for a funeral, whatever the case may be, they cover all that. The point is they're getting $3,000-$4,000 stipends. If you are a student who comes from an economically depressed situation, there are Pell Grants, there are other financial aid programs where you can get thousands of dollars. And this has been done for years. The players can keep it themselves or they can send it home to the families, whatever they want to do. Yes, they can get money. The main thing is they are getting their education paid for. If they choose not to take advantage of a free education, that's on them. And with a free education, it opens the whole world to you, besides having a chance to play some sport for the next 2 or 3 years or no years at all. So don't tell me they don't get something. They get a lot. And when you become a father and you have a kid that, can't walk and chew gum at the same time, is not going to get an athletic scholarship, is not smart enough to get a academic scholarship, and you have to pay for his college education over a 4-year period, and you're looking at student loans of $100,000 or more, tell me what's free and what's not free.
I still see all these inflated salaries from these coaches, all these inflated salaries with these TV deals.
So are coaches supposed to work for peanuts? I mean, that's their job.
Should they get paid $10 million a year?
That's what the market pays.
Well, the market, we obviously know what the market is for.
It's called a free market
You saw
system.
what the going rate is for a college basketball player to play at a particular school. That's the going rate.
Well, if you open up college basketball recruiting and college football, any of college recruiting to the open market, it's going to be a wild, wild west like you've never seen
it's
before.
already there.
We're
already in the wild, wild west. Open your eyes.
We're getting there. No, I don't disagree with the new rules. We are heading in that direction, and that's not good.
The point is there is a value on these player services, and they are not getting it outside of what they get from a scholarship. You are not only
deaf and dumb, but you are stupid.
You are stupid.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
First off, I'm neither deaf nor stupid.
And dumb.
I'm not deaf. I'm not deaf nor stupid nor dumb. If I'd be dumb, I wouldn't be able to speak. That's basically the way that works. It's the way the literal translation of that word is. You just because you have a different opinion of me does not make me stupid. What is the
what
problem
makes
here
you
is that
stupid-
you can't evolve beyond the fact that the
what
value
makes you
of the
stupid
scholarship is
is-
valued differently by other people. Yes,
What
obviously the
makes
value of the
you
scholarship might be good for
stupid
something.
when it comes to this particular discussion is that you fail to recognize that a college athletic scholarship means something.
You
To
failed.
say that it doesn't mean anything to me is stupid. That is the end of my discussion on that.
You feel that the scholarship has a value. I believe that there is a monetary, and by monetary, I mean cash money value on their likeness that they are not receiving. Cash money, not education, not scholarship, cash money, Benjamin's moolah dinero.
So
they have a value. We see it. It's proven. It's part and parcel proven. This entire scandal is proof that there is a monetary value on their name and likeness. It is part and parcel proof.
So?
What do you mean, so? That's the way this country works. If you have a value, you get money for that value.
So?
What do you mean, so? What's so what?
So, a scholarship is a value. It still means...
you. To you. They might not value that scholarship.
And you wonder why?
You want
to know why I call you stupid?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Why?
Because you want a college scholarship is a value.
They don't value the scholarship because they go to school for a year required of them, and then they go to the league and make money. Not scholarship, they make money. Dinero. That's why they don't value the scholarship.
Who doesn't value it?
People who go into the league, go into college basketball for 1 year just because the league tells them they have to, and then they go to the NBA to make money.
Okay.
Why do they go to college? They don't go to college to get an education. Like Ezekiel Elliott said, or was it was Cardale Jones who said, we don't go to play school. We go to get money.
But the system, as it is currently arranged...
And I'm telling you, the system is broken.
Will you let me speak? Will you let me speak?
You didn't let me speak for about a minute, so I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay? Do you need some Kleenex?
No, I'm fine. You just
you
don't
look like you're
understand
about
the way the
moved to-
world works in 2018.
You look like you're about moved to tears.
I'm not moved to tears.
Are
I'm
you
just saying
emotional over this?
I'm very emotional about this. I'm very passionate about this argument.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's okay to be wrong. I can understand that.
No. You're the one who's wrong. I don't think either of us is right or wrong.
No,
the fact that you're
I
calling
am
me
definitely
no, come on.
right.
Come on.
I am definitely
You are
right.
definitely.
I am definitely right because
looking
a
at this and
scholarship is not something that should be taken for granted. Of the 85 scholarships on a football player on a football team, typically maybe 3 or 4 of those guys can expect to play in the NFL for any amount of time. Maybe depending on the team, you might be a little bit more here, a little bit less there. So for the other 75 to 80 players who will never earn a dime off their likeness in professional sports, to have your college education paid for, which can amount to anywhere from $120,000 and up, depending on where you go to school, to have all your needs taken care of while you're in school, your incidentals, your food, your travel, your tutoring, anything like that that you need taken care of, another value point to their scholarship, not to mention the money that you're given now as a stipend by the NCAA. I'd say an athletic scholarship is quite valuable, and it's up to you to use it to help you get to your professional next step, whether it's in a sport or in the business world. And also, of course, if you play, let's say using South Carolina or Clemson, for example, the opportunities for you in the business world in the state are so much greater than it is for a non-athlete in many ways. There are people out there willing to take you in, give you a job right away, give you a good paying job, and help you get off on your career. So there is so much to be gained from being on an athletic scholarship.
Uh-huh.
To the phones we go once again.
So, as well, I'll use
we go
I'll
to
use yours. So,
let's go to where are we going next? Brian in Spartanburg. Welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
I know you called before we were getting into this argument, but I'm sure you have a leg to stand on this, Brian. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to make a couple of points on Clemson, but I do have a small point about what you guys are arguing about.
Yeah.
That scholarship is worth way more than $120,000. It is giving that student earning potential for a lifetime that he would not have had he not got a college scholarship.
They're not all staying.
Would you let him talk?
listen, it gives the guy earning potential. It is so powerful, and people don't understand how powerful it is. If you're a likable athlete and you don't play professional sports, you can pick your job in this state, in a business, just from the fact that you're a likable athlete and you have a degree, which can give you millions of dollars in earning potential over a lifetime.
Let me tell you something, Brian.
I digress. That's not my point. My point, the whole Clemson thing, there's been a little bit of a false narrative around this season so far. First of all, through the first 6 games, Clemson's strength of schedule is 11th in the country. Now, so they're not playing Sisters of the Poor every week like people would have you believe. The second point I wanted to make was ESPN was talking about how dominant Alabama was, and they were telling what the point spreads would be on a neutral field against all the other top teams. The team getting the fewest points from Alabama, this is as of 2 days ago, was Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
So
we talked about that yesterday.
When that committee is sitting in a room, believe me, they look at who the best teams are. The only reason that Alabama got in over a one-loss Ohio State, who was a conference champion last year, was because those people knew that on a neutral field, Alabama was a better football team. That's the only reason they got in. So anybody, just, for the record, anybody that thinks that, like, for example, a one-loss Georgia, who is a non-conference champion, is going to get in over any undefeated power conference champion has lost their marbles. It is going to happen.
Hey,
it's not going to happen.
Let me just say,
an undefeated Power 5 team is going to get in over a one-loss non-conference champion.
All right,
Alabama barely got in last year over a one-loss Ohio State. Not an undefeated Ohio State.
Let me correct you though. But if you're going by the Sagarin schedule ranking, Clemson is 40th. But then again, Alabama's 59, Ohio State is 56. Now you might have another formula that shows Clemson at 11, but the Sagarin ranking has Clemson number 40 with their strength of schedule.
Zion Williamson's not going to Duke for its staunch academic prowess. He's going there for the fact that they have Coach K. Okay? That's why he's going to Duke.
That's got nothing to do with scholarships. Danny in Greenville, welcome to Sports Talk. Hello. Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I got a couple of things. Carolina got any running backs?
No.
Fast, quick, big, coming in next year?
Well, they're redshirting a couple of quarterbacks. I'm sorry, running backs, Fenwick and Valentine. So they've got those two guys in redshirting
they should
mode.
Think about not redshirting them because they don't run the football well now.
And Fenwick is between those two. Fenwick is a pretty big guy. As far as you're looking for big, strong running backs.
Yeah, kind of like the Holyfield from Georgia, something like that.
Yeah. Well, as far as their football class is concerned, at this point, I'm just trying to pull up their list real quick here so I can take a quick glance at it and see who they've got in the running back category. Kevin Harris is 5'11", 225 out of Hinesville, Georgia. He's one of their he is their lone running back commitment. They might take one more running back in this class. They've been, of course, talking to Michael Davis down in the Charleston area, a little bit with the running back up at Spartanburg High School, and a couple of others. So it's possible they could add one more running back to this class. But the running backs you see now, should all be back. Daddle should be back.
Lovely.
Turner should be back. Williams should be back, and then you add the other two into the mix. And Mon Denson should be back if they all decide to stay.
So they could all average less than 3 yards a carry?
Well, blocking would help. You know, I mean, being good run blockers would certainly help. Hey, look, I don't think you're stupid. Okay,
have a blessed day.
In the heat of the moment, things are said. Let's leave with a smile.
Have a blessed day, Corn.
You still need some Kleenex?
I'm fine.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow.